Greetings, Fright fans. Dr. Gangrene, Nashville Horror host here. Welcome to the channel. This is going to be a wrap-up video for the October Halloween marathon that we did, our 13 days of Halloween countdown, where this year I called it Rattober because we spotlighted 13 rat movies. So I wanted to do a little wrap-up video here to talk about some of the rat movies that we shot, but also some of the ones that we didn't shoot, and answer a piece of viewer mail as well. So getting to the ones that we did shoot here, I've got my list here. You know, one thing that I did not do this year is give a skull rating, because I usually rate the movies on a scale of 1 to 5 skulls, 1 being the least good, and of course 5 being the best. And I didn't do that this time. So we'll kind of go through them here, and I'll give you some thoughts on each, and we'll just kind of quickly do that. So the first movie we looked at was Nebula. Oh, and I'll put a link up here too. For those of you who did not see these, there'll be a link here to the playlist so you guys can go and check those out. So the first one was Nebula, the rat monster, Japanese movie. Pretty fun little movie. It was not perfect and could have been better in places. I'll probably give that a 3 skull rating. Pretty average film, but it is fun seeing the rubber suit rat guy fighting the soldiers. So that is worth checking out for that. Next up on day 2 was Nightmares, which is a horror anthology. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a horror anthology nut. It's my favorite subgenre. So I'm going to give this one 4 skulls. It's a great 80s horror anthology film, and the rat segment in it is pretty good. So yeah, check out Nightmares if you've never seen that. I can recommend that. It's on Blu-ray from Shout Factory now. Let's see. Next up was Graveyard Shift, the Stephen King story. I'm going to get, and 4 skulls for Nightmares, 3 for Graveyard Shift. It's a good movie. It is kind of a classic rat. When you think of rat movies, it's one of the ones that comes to mind. That definitely channels a really grimy, dirty feel for me. They did a good job of conveying the heat and the grime of that factory. So I enjoy Graveyard Shift. Next up was a made-for-TV thing called Beasts. That was a television show, a British television show. I believe it was from the 1970s or maybe early 80s. I can't remember now. Beasts was really good. I'll give that 4 skulls. That was a great little made-for-TV thing. One of the things that I discovered when I started researching rat movies and was really happy to watch. Great little made-for-TV drama there. Next up was Willard, the original. We looked at the original Willard, and I'll give that 4 skulls. That is probably the Citizen Kane of rat movies. It's not quite a 5 skull classic, you know, best horror movies of all time, but it's right under that. It's probably the best of the rat movies. So if you've never seen Willard, definitely check it out. Check out the original, and the remake's not bad either. Next up is Food of the Gods. I would give that one 3 skulls probably. I love some Bird-Eye Gordon movies and how he loves to make everything giant. So it's always fun to see some Bird-Eye Gordon action. So yeah, Food of the Gods had to go on here, and there is a part 2 of that as well. Next up, day 7 was Hoodrat. This was kind of an urban Willard. Once again, you have a little white mouse and named Tara this time, which was a rat spelled backwards. It's pretty clever. It's a clever movie that unfortunately suffers from some unfortunate editing choices, and it's like somebody whoever edited this thing went crazy with the editing tools. Like, oh yeah, we can do this. We can. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. It interferes with the flow of the story a little bit, but it's worth tracking down. 3 skulls for that. Deadly Eyes. Deadly Eyes was one of my very favorite of all the rat movies on here. That's the one with the dachshunds in costumes, 80s rat movie, and I love it, and I want to watch it again right now. I'm going to give it 4 skulls, but it's actually one of my very favorites of the list, and it's a really hard movie to find. I had to borrow it from a friend of mine. It's out of print, and I'm hoping that someone will re-release it, because everybody needs to see this. It's a lot of fun. Trilogy of Terror 2 was the next one, another horror anthology movie. I would give that 3 skulls. I think it's a fun anthology, well made. It just needs a bit more pep. It's just a little, I don't know, just needs a little bit more zip to it, a little faster paced, and yeah, I think it's good though. It's definitely worth watching. And that story that they do, Graveyard Rats, the first story in the anthology, is one of my very favorite short stories of all time by Henry Kuttner. Fantastic short story. If you ever get a chance to read that, it is a creepy, spooky short story. Next up is Nosferatu, and I give that 5 skulls. For me, Nosferatu is probably the greatest, probably the best vampire movie of all time. Definitely the scariest vampire movie of all time. And it set the mold. I mean, think about Dracula, you think of the suave, sophisticated vampire. When you think about Nosferatu, he is nothing more than a monster. Rat-like, those long front incisors and bald head and pointy ears, long sharp claws on his fingernails, and nothing about that guy is human. So I love it. 5 skulls. 1922 was next for day 11. Stephen King's story, once again, it's on Netflix. I give it 4 skulls. I love this movie. I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times now. I would watch it again right now. It's a great movie. I can't recommend it highly enough. Thomas Jane and Molly Parker, they're great. And man, good little EC comic style story. Day 12 was Of Unknown Origin, another 4 skull movie. Peter Weller, Mono a Ratto versus a rat gone crazy in his house. That was a good one. And the last one was Rat's Night of Terror. Once again, 4 skulls, Italian horror, post-apocalyptic, kind of crazy, and a lot of fun. So I was really happy with this 13-day countdown. I hope all of you enjoyed it. I think we covered a good number of rat movies here and a good variety of rat movies, but there were a lot more. I know some of you asked me, you said you didn't think there were 31 rat movies out there. So here's some of the ones on this list here. This is my original list that I was thinking about covering if I had time, but with doing my TV show this year, there's no way I could get to 31 of them. But just for those of you out there who may want to look at some other rat movies, maybe you got in the mood, maybe you're feeling ratty. We had Willard, 1971, the Willard remake from 2003 with Crispin Glover. It's really good. There's Ben from 1972, Rat's Night of Terror, which we covered, The Food of the Gods, 76, Food of the Gods 2. There's one called Rat Scratch Fever from 2011. It's not really great. Nightmares, 1983, Trilogy of Terror 2, Of Unknown Origin. Of course, we covered all those. Graveyard Shift. There was Rats, also known as Killer Rats, from 2003. There's The Rats from 2002. I bought some of these on DVD and haven't even had a chance to watch them yet. Gnaw, Food of the Gods 2. Rodents with a Z. Have not watched it. No, I did watch that. It was okay. It was all right. Rat Man from 1988. The Killer Shrews, that's a classic. It counts. It's another dog in costume movie. That's a good one. Nosferatu, Hoodrat, we covered. The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here, 1972. There was one called The Piper, 2016, which is a takeoff of The Pied Piper. Then there's Night of Fear from 1972. Now that's a really interesting little movie about, well, it's not really a rat movie per se, but it's kind of a hillbilly horror. It's really actually, 72 is a precursor to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if you watch this movie, it looks a lot like Chainsaw Massacre in the stage design and the look of the place, bones hanging up everywhere. It's pretty incredible. But there is a scene in it where the guy captures a woman and puts her in a room and raises this trap door up, and all these rats flood in to attack her. So there is that. There's Rats from 2011. Let's see, Mulberry Street, 2007. Revenge of the Rats, 2001. Bram Stoker's Burial of the Rats. Haven't seen that one, 95. Deadly Eyes, 82, which we covered. The Rats, 96. The Pied Piper, 86, animated. It's kind of a kid's thing. You know the story about the Pied Piper. I have something written down called The Rat Savior from 1976. Terror in the Swamp, Rat Apocalypse, 2015. Hunchback of the Morgue, which is a Nashi movie that has a prominent scene where rats unfortunately get actually caught on fire, so they actually burn the little things. You know, a lot of these movies, you see these older movies, they have not the same standards at all as we do towards animals, and unfortunately you get some cruelty towards some of these creatures in some of these. Rat 2014, the Demon Rat 91. Let's see, there's a Monsters episode that I wrote down called Stressed Environment, but that's actually aliens, it's not really rats. They might have looked kind of ratty. Beasts during Barty's party, we covered that. So anyway, there was a whole bunch, and I'm sure there's more out there than those, that as I was researching those, I would have even found more. If the problem with doing these kind of lists is I'm a completist. I've got to watch them all and decide which ones I want to cover. So anyway, I drive myself crazy with these things. That's why I don't do too many of like top 10 or top 5 videos. I've been wanting to do more of those, and I am going to do more in the future. But it's just like I want to see all of them before I can make my best list. But also had a viewer, let me pull my phone up here, who had a question about rats here. He said, hang on, let me get this up here. This was Mr. Dan and Harry asked, now that we're almost through with the countdown, which film, in your opinion, had the best rats effects or used rats most efficiently? I would say probably 1922, because that film, being a modern movie, I actually watched an interview with the director of it, and they used tons and tons of rats, and he talked about how they had basically like rat actors. He said that they went out of their way to figure out which rats, you know, every rat has a different personality is what he was saying, and they went out of their way to discover which rats' personality suited which task they needed, and they had more time to actually spend to train the rats, because the longer you have to train the rat, the better job they're going to do. So, you know, some rats are more enthusiastic, some are more food driven, some are more aggressive, some are faster. So they were able to actually figure out which rats had which personalities, to train them and get them to do the things that they wanted, like the scene where they're walking down the stairs, where the woman's, the wife, the dead wife, the ghost of his dead wife comes down the stairs, and you see her feet coming down the steps with all the rats running down the steps with her. Well, they trained the rats. He said, you know, these little guys were scared to go down a step, so we had to first get them to feel okay going down one step, and then get them going down a couple of steps, and then keep that up until we got them to feel okay with going down the entire steps and having a person walk down with them, which he said was actually him. Those are actually the director's feet, not the feet of Molly Parker, the actress in this movie, who I absolutely adore, by the way. From Deadwood and everything I've seen her in, she is just, what a babe. She is fantastic. But anyway, just another reason to love this movie. The ghost of her is super creepy. So anyway, I would say 1922 probably did the best job, because they had more time to spend to train the rats and to get them to do the things that they wanted to do. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this Rattober countdown. I had that horrifying finale there, you know, where the giant rat came in, but have no fear, we worked it out. It turned out he was actually quite reasonable. We worked out an agreement. He's going to stay down in the catacombs as long as and with all his little rat brethren, as long as I agree to give him a steady supply of cheese. And fortunately, around here, supplying cheese has never been a problem. So anyway, once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this October Rattober countdown. Stay tuned. We'll have more fun stuff coming up in the future, and more countdowns just like this one. I got to start planning for next year. You guys got any suggestions? What would you like to see me cover? I'm going to think about it and come up with another good topic for next year. So anyway, leave your suggestions down below. Let me know what you thought about this year's countdown. And until next time, Dr. Gangrene here from the lab, as always, saying, stay mad.